Hello and welcome to the second episode of the podcast, Comics in Widescreen. I'm Scott Ecker.
I'm Chuck Crane.
And I'm Erik Brodsho.
And each week we're talking about superhero movies in some form. Last week we bashed Amazing Spider-Man 2, which I still feel great about.
Oh, yeah.
So take a listen to that. This week our topic is we're individually going to just talk about why we love superheroes, what got us into this, because I think superhero movies play a big role in the development of a geek.
Yep.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's true for all of us. But first, there's always a lot of superhero movie news that we'd like to discuss.
There's a lot of news that has cropped up in the past 2 weeks or so.
So,
ridiculous.
First on the docket is that the Batman vs. Superman finally has a name.
Yep.
Yeah.
A movie we've been calling Batman vs. Superman since it was announced.
Yeah.
What's the name?
Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice.
Yep.
But it's not. It's Batman v Superman.
Yeah.
Which
Dawn
means
of
versus.
Justice.
Which means versus.
It looks so stupid.
It's just like, it's like Roe
Why?
v. Wade, bro.
Yeah.
See, and this is what I have to say, just to get it cleanly out, is if they were going to give it a different title than Batman vs. Superman, it should involve getting rid of the Batman vs. Superman altogether.
Yeah.
And
It's
just and like
Ballistic X versus Suburban.
Yeah, it's like there's just too much going on. Like, this title has effectively 6 words in it. And it's not Lord of the Rings. You know,
No.
this should be pretty simple and self-explanatory. It's just not clean. It's
Yeah,
not aesthetically
it's not
pleasing.
accessible.
It just bugs me.
Why I understand it is from a marketing standpoint and logic reasons. They've been calling it Batman vs. Superman since they announced it. So it's like any other changing of it would be that.
They're trying to
But
get their
they
cake
want
and eat it too.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
because
like-
they're throwing the word justice in there as well.
Well, it's because
you
it
know?
is. I think, I don't know if it was you or somebody else I explained it to, but this is Batman vs. Superman, and this meeting of these two guys is the dawn
Of justice.
of the Justice
Which Dawn
League.
seems to be the new buzzword. It's
Yeah.
replacing Rise.
Yeah,
You know,
Dawn,
in every
well,
movie.
is it Dawn of the Planet of
Yeah.
the Apes?
Because we've got Wonder Woman in it for sure, Cyborg, rumors of an Aquaman.
That'd be so pimp.
Like all, so it's like it's the dawn of the Justice League era. So I get that.
I can
and
kind of see
the only
what you're
reason.
saying, yeah.
So the Dawn of Justice was just basically added to spruce up the Batman vs Superman title that
was
everybody
kind
had
of
been
lame.
using already.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like how when Singer did Superman Returns and the planned follow-up was called Man of Steel, people have been calling it Man of Steel since then. So then when they finally came around to making another Superman movie and it was without Singer, they still called it Man of Steel. Just because that branding had been out there.
I would
for
just
so
like to
long.
point out that the only other DC live-action theatrical movie to have a subtitle, Quest for Peace.
Oh, God.
Just point that out there. They've avoided ridiculousness since
This
then.
is ominous. you
Yeah.
know? And I thought we were beyond the time where semicolons were, or just colons.
Master and Commander,
yeah,
colon,
yeah. I thought we
Far
were.
Side.
I thought we were done with that. You know,
Yeah.
or like Charlie's Angels.
Or
First
you
Row.
earn it. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, Winter Soldier, Dark World earned it, I think. But,
Well, in that instance, it actually kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, because it's like you have. It's just like, I'm trying to think of an example here. Like Indiana Jones and this. you know?
Yeah, that's a full title.
Harry Potter and this, you know, like
Yeah.
Thor. This doesn't flow as well as
No,
those.
and the
Yeah,
V
Thor the Dark
bothers me.
Yeah.
Just the V.
The V.
So, but also,
Probably saw I was too busy already. Or just like,
yeah, take one letter
cut
out.
where we can.
Yeah. Flash TV series.
Yep.
Mark Waid even likes what he sees. So.
Which is rare.
He's
because
gushing over it.
He's
also.
the biggest crybaby when it comes to that stuff too, and to see him
He's
actually,
passionate.
to see him actually excited for something for once,
Yeah.
As opposed to
Promising.
as opposed to ripping
Yeah.
it.
like everything.
So that has me excited since he's one of the better Flash writers.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and since he had one of the more definitive runs on that.
On another podcast, David S. Goyer made some disparaging remarks for Martian Manhunter and She-Hulk, So I think David S. Goyer hates green people. I've never seen one in any of his movies, so I would challenge David S. Goyer to come on this podcast and defend himself. So just putting that out there since he's listening.
Obviously, he's definitely listening, and he'll fly out to Fargo. You know?
Yeah.
He needs positive PR.
He does. He needs some control over this issue.
Like the fact that he said the Martian Manhunter is it like he just doesn't believe that this character deserves.
That's the part that bugs me.
That bugs me. Like,
the She-Hulk thing I could get over because She-Hulk's always been a...
Well, let's see. I can... Like, he's being ignorant about She-Hulk, in my
opinion. And I like seeing that her fans are, stepping forth and be like, no, this is a strong character we care about. So,
and she has value, and it's like, you obviously don't see that because you don't read it. I'm talking about Goyer, not you.
No. But I'd like, at the same time, there are all these people that are so passionate about it, but I'd like to see that actually translate over into
the quality of the work.
Yeah, the work and the care that the character gets from its company, which isn't very much. They say they do. They say they do.
No.
They say they do, but it doesn't. She has a book, and she pops up every once in a while. The only time I really noticed she mattered in anything was Fraction's FF run not too long ago.
The new Charles Schul relaunch is good, and Dan Slott had one of the better Marvel runs, period, with She-Hulk and John Byrne.
Always, her stuff's always under promoted. It's always under, it's just, I don't know, it's a Marvel thing.
Do we actually see a She-Hulk appearing in any of the live-action Marvel stuff?
It's going to confuse, people think she's ridiculous. Like, there's that ignorance that she's, but I think that'd be really fun, like...
And here's my issue with characters like that in general. It's just that she was just what's... let me think about how I'm going to say this. How interesting can a character like that be when it's just like you're just going to happen to just have the same exact thing happen to you that happened to Bruce Banner?
But there's a comedy to her
and you're related. It's like, this is why I don't see it happening. It's like it's. Just,
I
it's
could
just
see a fun legal, sort of.
It's like having her be a lawyer. I could dig that, but I just don't understand how necessary she would be to that.
They won't. Well, knowing how much sometimes Marvel thinks through things, I could see them just chucking her in there.
Actually, as She-Hulk though, not just as her human persona.
I say we get it. I say we get a human version in the next Ruffalo movie.
Or even better, why not get her involved in some of the Netflix shows?
Mm-hmm. That's the better one for her.
Yeah, along with Daredevil, I can see her.
Why not have her be one, like a peer?
Offense attorney.
Be kind of like maybe a flirtatious adversary for him in the courtroom. That could be fun.
Mm-hmm. Then people get all up in arms because she's the flirtatious.
Well, no, because she would kick him to the curb, because she obviously would out-lawyer him,
Are we talking like them doing the same exact thing like they do with Gwen Stacy, where they make her seem like she's really strong, but in the end she falls down?
I would hope that since this would actually be Marvel producing this, they would actually give her some true...
but speaking of Daredevil and Netflix, and moving on from She-Hulk... Drew Goddard is replaced by Stephen E. McKnight as the Daredevil showrunner.
Because Drew Goddard would rather do
Sinister Six.
Yes, Sinister Six. Let's call it Secret Six.
Again, you did that last time.
Yeah.
That's really unfortunate.
It is.
Because you look at what Stephen McKnight has done, and I don't think he's a good fit. No.
It's got Smallville and some others.
I don't care. I don't like it.
Okay.
Because I'd rather have someone with kind of the cachet that Goddard has doing it.
Yeah. But this is a poorly timed announcement, a day after Edgar Wright and Marvel splitting ways. Which, Facebook has been good job, Edgar Wright, for being an artist and sticking to your guns. And, Marvel, you're a heartless machine that doesn't care about the art. And it's I don't know if it's that simple.
Part of it is.
It might.
Part of it.
Well, maybe.
It's more complex than that. But on the barest of bare terms, that's probably...
We kind of touched on this before you got here a little bit. It's like the fact that this has been gestating for so long.
Well, yeah.
And that they've
I was surprised that Edgar Wright's been with it this long.
And they've put it off.
Since 2006.
We don't want you in the first wave. Okay, we'll hold off until the third. You know, like or
well, a lot of that
whatever
is
it
because
is.
they're letting him do the movies he wants. It's like, take care of Scott Pilgrim.
They're accommodating him, and maybe it just got to the point where they had accommodated him for so long that they weren't willing to let him make a lot of the creative choices he wanted to make. So they were like, no, it's like, you're going to kind of play ball a little bit. And he was like, well, you know what? If I'm not going to be able to do it how I want to do it, and I'm not really willing to find a compromise here, so you know what? Let's just part ways and just... Yeah, like it probably, that might have just been
the scoop from the rumor mill that is Latino Reviews, take as, with a grain of salt. They say that Marvel rewrote the script and Wright and Cornish left. Feige stuck up for them, but that came from higher ups.
Yeah.
Latino Review's been around plenty of times.
They were the ones who said that Bale was going to be in Batman vs. Superman.
Yeah.
Latino Review, I know. They either just drop the ball hard,
or they get it right, and then you just
there's
hear
no
about
in
all the
between.
times
That's why
they
it's
get it
always, always like you be cautious when you hear stuff coming out of Latino Review.
Yeah, the other rumor is that Wright was behind schedule and over budget, so I don't know.
Which is probable, because they probably don't want to spend
Marvel
that much on him.
But
Marvel doesn't want to spend that much money.
In general, they basically treat all these like an indie film, and that's kind of refreshing to see, because most studios are like, throw $300 million at it, it'll make $1 billion worldwide.
Well, and you just see how, you look at the end credits to every Marvel movie, and it's just astounding how many different effects houses they use, because they don't want to sink one, which is kind of what happened to Rhythm and Hughes, because they took on too much. So it's like, here, it's like, okay, we're just going to have these guys just do the Iron Man stuff. These guys are responsible for Hulk. They kind of are they're pretty judicious about how they dole that stuff out. So it's like, it's healthy from an industry perspective, definitely.
So who do you think for replacing Wright? If he's
That's tough.
If Cornish is still on board, I think the rumor is bump him up, since he was denied Star Trek. People loved Attack the Block. I think he co-wrote it. So, but if he left, I've heard rumors of Chris Miller and Phil Lord as people wanting to see them do a Marvel thing. I think this would be
what have they
fit
done?
for them.
Those names aren't familiar.
Lego Movie, 21 Jump
guys.
Street,
Okay.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Fly with a Chance of Meatballs. Really? Oh, I think they've got great imagination, great sense of humor. They've never done anything wrong.
From that perspective,
I think Lego Movie shows.
Lego Movie.
Yeah,
I wasn't a fan of Meatballs.
Really?
I had no meatball. No, I hated Meatballs. Well, it's basically because I was a huge fan of that book, and it was nothing.
But it does have a unique visual style, and it's so I'm pro those guys, but they could plug Shane Black in or something, or someone.
No, don't let Shane Black do that.
No, I don't know,
because
let him do something else. I don't know.
Shane Black had a shot in Iron Man 3.
I guess massively. I don't feel strongly about anyone in particular to champion, so I guess whoever they put in there, sure.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
So, see how that turns out. And then the other big kind of superhero movie news is, of course, Days of Future Past opening strong and being
much
the movie
stronger than Spider-Man.
Way strong. This is how you reboot a franchise.
Yeah.
And you reboot it with all of the same characters from the first one.
No, this is basically like a completion of Singer's first trilogy. Finally, this is the movie that we deserved after X2.
Yeah.
Well, and look at it this way. It's like, which is kind of true of the comics, how the comics have worked throughout the years, is you go through a lull of really terrible stuff just so they can do something amazing later on. And so, we had 10 years of
garbage,
so that they could make this amazing movie.
Yeah.
This is the best X-Men movie that they've made, I would say. I liked it more than X2.
I would need to kind of, watch X2 again and compare the two, because I think that's a better ensemble movie and does a few things.
Yeah.
But, this is one of the best plotted, superhero, or just any blockbuster I've ever seen.
It could have gotten so convoluted and messed up, but it didn't.
It was clean,
Well, and although it's not an ensemble movie, even though a lot of characters are just cameos, they matter. You don't feel left out by any of them. They leave an impact.
The emotional resonance is off the chain.
And then,
it hit me so hard every single time. Someone would bite the dust. It was brutal, and it's like you felt terrible.
Yeah.
And when I think X-Men works best when they find new levels to the metaphor of diversity, and this found some new things to do with JFK, and it advanced the medium.
And there's even some like war on terror allusions worked in there too, because it's like you're obviously, it's kind of in keeping with something Captain America did. It's just like these are people who are dangerous to the state. Mm-hmm. We're just going to round them all up,
Well, and the idea of Xavier, trading his mutation for his legs, too, is fascinating. And it has great additions like that. And, so I definitely want to see it again.
But what I thought was, the best thing about it, the coolest thing, was the fact that at the end, at the finale, it wasn't Wolverine that saved the day.
Yeah.
It wasn't any of the typical big name characters you'd think that would be the ones to diffuse the situation and and save everybody.
Yeah.
It was one character making the choice not to do something that they had spent the entire movie to do.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really, it was pretty inspired considering what we've been seeing from superhero movies in general.
Yeah, well, and just like Captain America and, again, Lego Movie, there's an optimism to this, and I really like that we're moving in that direction. Last week, we were so frustrated with Amazing Spider-Man 2 and how bleak and pointless all that was. Everything mattered in this. I really liked that.
Completely.
It was dark, there was light at the end of the tunnel. And what I liked, too, was the kind of almost respectful send-off for the OG cast at the very end.
And it was kind of part, I wanted to see that continue.
Yeah.
But also, it's I don't think they could tie that up better.
No.
It was just perfect. Everyone was there.
It's what they deserved,
Kelsey Grammer,
That
made me happy.
When Grammer pimped in,
I was like,
but
slow start this morning.
Yeah, but it does kind of bring into question, there's some issues with continuity. That will persist. Because it's why don't... Okay, so in 10 years, we go from James McAvoy to CG Patrick Stewart. In 1983 or 1986, whenever they in X3, but then technically we're supposed to believe that X3 never happened.
Then did X-Men or X2 never happen as well?
The events didn't play out as we saw them. Because they've said now that there are going to be some original cast hangovers in Apocalypse, when they said before there wasn't.
Will they be the same actors, or will they be different actors playing the same characters?
No, same actors. That's what they mean.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's Hugh Jackman's back.
Yeah.
And then, which wasn't a guarantee, because remember he was like, I'll maybe do this Wolverine movie and then pimp out. And now...
I'll maybe try and get more money. But
and then now that he saw the reaction and everything that Days of Future Past has been getting, he's just like, I'm re-energized. If they want me, I'll do it.
Yeah.
So that's...
And Fox will definitely try and keep Jennifer Lawrence around as long as they can.
Well, because and they will, because the next one is now in the 80s.
Yeah.
Apocalypse is going to be in the 80s with the first class cast.
Yeah.
Plus Hugh Jackman. And then there's also... Patrick Stewart also dropped some hints that he might be showing up in some capacity in Apocalypse.
But I'm fine with this being a self-contained trilogy that also sets up a new one. Time travel in movies is odd, so I think I'm fine with X-Men, X2.
Let's not do another time travel story for a while.
Yeah. No, we don't need to set it back up. It's we had those good movies. Let's do some more.
The other question this brought up was, does Wolverine have his metal claws now?
Yeah.
And if so, how did it happen?
Yeah, I think
because it happened differently. It probably just happened more or less the same, but just not according to what Wolverine Origins had it.
We'll find out.
But I mean, Stryker, you saw at the end.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Whatever.
Well, we didn't say it at first.
Spoilers. But Mystique replaces Stryker at the end.
Well, Stryker's not dead.
You don't know that?
She just replaced him in that moment.
You don't know that.
Well, dude, that's just the assumption I'm making.
Well, I think
because the Stryker character can't be dead and gone. Obviously, he still played a role.
A lot of times, when she replaces somebody, though, she kills that person and takes on their persona, so she replaces them functionally in life.
I think that's definitely an answer they'll have to
in the 80s.
So it'll be interesting.
But from my perspective, just for simplicity's sake,
Yeah.
Stryker's still alive.
Yeah.
Like, he still does the Weapon X program. I don't think that changes. Like, granted, all the shitty stuff is presumably wiped away.
Yeah.
But just for simplicity, Occam's razor here.
Well, and also that there's a chance for Wolverine 3 we could see that, which I think would be an interesting thing to see Wolverine going ahead in time.
Yeah.
For once, because that's always the problem with him as a solo character for me. He's always in the past.
What's really beautiful is if all of this is a true self-contained universe, how did he go from super duper buff Wolverine in the 70s to slender?
Oh man, his pecs in this one, like they're popping for no reason. Like
the
veins, they're bigger than
veins in his body. Like
pecs are bigger than
the shot, like when he's lying
That's how
in
Wolverine
bed.
should be, though.
Yeah.
Like when he's in the waterbed and like they just have the shot of him like with a shirt on, and I was just like, holy fuck, the veins on this guy's body.
It's like I saw Les Mis and like, whoa, this is he aged finally.
But but that was always a lot of people's problem in the first couple of X-Men's with
Too
Hugh
short,
Jackman
not
was,
tall enough. Too tall, yeah.
and he was slender.
Yeah.
But now he's beefed up so he can be that kind of beefier looking.
And they shoot him so he looks shorter.
Yeah.
They do camera trickery to make that happen.
Yep.
So and my we're off track again. But my one complaint.
Okay.
How does Kitty send people back in time?
This
It doesn't have powers. It doesn't. Okay.
This is my explanation. You know how people like in X-Men universe, there's always some like second stage of their mutation.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that this is the second stage.
It's
of
a
mutation.
weird one, but I mean the comics have had
Look
weirder.
at it this way:
Angel
What if
and healing.
just
so,
makes their conscious intangible
and sends it
And
through
it
time and
phased
space.
through time.
Through time. There it is.
Yeah.
See, it's like I agree. It was the most absurd way they could have gone about it.
Because it's like with Rachel Summers in the comics, it's like, yeah, she's a powerful telepath. She
Yeah.
takes your conscious into another form. But it's also like, I'm kind of glad they didn't over-explain it too and overthink about it.
It was
it's like, no,
unnecessary.
let's move on. Let's just tell a good story.
All we
So,
needed to
yeah.
know was that Kitty needed to just sit there on Wolverine, zapping his
touch
brain,
him,
and and withstand the pain of bleeding out or spoilers, whatever. But it's like there was a struggle for her to keep it going, and you felt like at any moment she might collapse and then everything might fall apart because Wolverine isn't there. Like you say, like the urgency is crazy.
Well, like the action these movies have been great. I mean the Days of Future Past, the future is so like just attacked like Blink, an amazing choice for this movie.
Well, yeah, those sequences were amazing.
Right.
But also Quicksilver, people are highlighting as
Quicksilver
He
was
was the biggest
somebody I
surprise.
wasn't looking forward
No.
to.
I was ready to hate this guy.
Yeah,
And then that scene just was like,
Evan Peters.
apparently that was a later addition.
Yeah, it's supposed to be Juggernaut, and then they.
That would have been
character
lame.
was supposed to
I'm
be
glad they went with this, and I'm glad they threw in the little reference to the fact that Magneto is his dad.
Yeah.
I had to try and do the math and stuff when that
It'll work out.
fed
It took place like he obviously had sex with
it
his
plays the
mom
70s.
during his Nazi warpath that he was doing. He was hunting down
As you do,
all the Nazi
it's-
stories.
yeah.
He made a stop over in New York and and had sex with a lady, or maybe it happened in Europe when she was on
He was
school
a
trip.
kid when he got out of the concentration camp, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
So
man.
then,
Teenager.
so then the '60s was when the first movie took place. Was about 20 years later, and then this one it was another 10 years later.
It would have had to have been.
So
in
it
the,
would have had to be in
50s,
the.
It would have had to been in the 50s, like the late 50s.
Yeah, 'cause he was about 17.
Maybe 20.
It was 19.
Yeah.
Well, he was living at home.
Well,
Can you imagine?
You know how
that?
many, how many kids are
It was
living at home?
1973.
And he's obviously like kind of a hoodlum.
Yeah.
Because he's stealing shit.
'Cause I thought for some reason I thought they said he was like 17 or something.
Yeah, a kid.
Did they say? I don't think they ever say.
Well,
his age.
like he'd be a kid at the time or something.
He obviously was young.
Yeah, if he was old and Days of Future Past or something, that makes sense.
That would have been so cool.
Yeah. Oh, we'll see that. We'll see him in Apocalypse. But I just love picturing Magneto trying to like use his power of magnetism to stop him somehow from getting someone pregnant.
Well, that's the other
would
thing
try.
too is
I have lots of iron in
Scarlet
my
Witch
semen.
is 'cause they show Scarlet Witch for a second, brief second, But she's younger than Pietro
So
and
not
Peter.
the twins.
Maybe
yeah.
he came back. Maybe he came back for
Brother
a
and
visit.
sister,
And he's just
maybe?
like, "Hey, baby, I'm back in town," and then he
Yeah.
had sex with the mom again and got her pregnant again.
Yeah,
That's
that
Super
sounds like
Magneto.
Magneto.
Maybe instead of Magneto pulling the sperm away, he's pushing it and making it
Yeah, it's
find
no,
its way.
he's jerking off, and somehow putting it onto like a cum rag.
I'm sure we can find a comic where that exact thing's happening.
It's Rule 34, man.
Yeah.
It has
Increases
to
the
be
amount
out
of
there.
metal in his diet.
Yeah, that's what I said. He has the higher
Too much
concentration of
iron in
iron
your
in his
blood.
semen.
Yes.
But like as a send off, even though they presumably might come back, as a
Yeah,
send off
that's
to
the
Ian
thing.
McKellen and Patrick Stewart, that was great. I loved
Yes.
seeing those two working together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it made me love X-Men movies
That
again.
was the thing too. The
Yeah,
Kinberg,
definitely.
they're talking to him, and he was just like, the way we saw this is this, the send off for that first
Era.
cast. But a lot of people, including me, this is what he said. A lot of people, including him, thought that the X3, that was an end to that cast.
Yeah.
But so he said that that's not to say this cast couldn't pop up again.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to see Blink back. I'd love to see Bishop.
Let's talk about the real star of that cameo at the end, though.
Yeah.
Scott Summers.
Yeah.
sunglasses.
Yeah.
I was so happy to see him.
His sunglasses,
Yeah.
though.
They were so pimped.
Those sunglasses. But yeah, Scott Summers. I knew he was going to be in there.
And look who is still just dropped a like gorgeous
Famke
Famke
Janssen.
Janssen. She is just aged like fine
50,
wine.
whatever, yeah.
I can't believe she's that old.
No, yeah.
Good for her. Yeah.
Yeah, she's doing well.
Or good for whoever she's. Josh Peck, I think she was dating for a while, which is weird.
Good for her. Just
Wait,
good
like
for
Drake and Josh?
Yeah.
her. Really?
Yeah.
Damn. Cougar and hard.
Yeah.
Damn. Okay.
That's some. Why Josh Peck? I
That's-
guess he's like hipster doofus now, but
Yeah.
But, so
Red Dawn,
Like,
yeah.
Brodsho, did you have any moments that that you were like,
This-
did you have something that you were like, I don't like that from this movie?
from this movie,
Yeah.
I don't like that. Not especially.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
See,
Honestly,
I'm
me
with- I'm
neither.
with that, too.
I'm not, because like First Class is like, yeah, it's a good movie. Like I love the Xavier Magneto
I was
stuff,
so mad about First Class.
but like that script and a lot of the lines and that ensemble is just like it's missing. Like Vaughn did some good things with the training scene, but
Didn't even focus on the First Class.
No.
And they were planning on doing a standalone Magneto movie, which was basically Magneto's story arc from First Class.
Yeah.
And they probably just took that idea, just
Yeah.
merged it with this other thing. And in the end, his story was the more interesting one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
But Xavier's too, like those two, that dynamic worked great, but the rest of it felt so, like you said, meh.
It was very meh.
and that's something that
It didn't make me feel anything.
X-Men Apocalypse needs a more diverse cast.
Yeah.
It just does. It needs a better lineup.
It can't hang on the McAvoy, Fassbender, Lawrence trio.
And you need
No.
more. You need more than that. Like you
and
need
Beast,
more than
yes.
Wolverine. Like you need to have Cyclops there. You need,
Well, yeah, and
you
that's
need to
where
have
he could get his starts.
You
and,
need
yeah.
those kinds of characters there. It's just a necessity. You need these classic X-Men characters to be there. Otherwise, you're just going to be
Well,
putting
that's
up
what
an
he said.
inferior
He
product
said-
if you're
he
not.
said, you probably won't see the original cast people, but
Yeah.
you may see younger
yeah.
versions.
God,
of
Which
them.
is what I
Bronson
want.
Needs a break,
I
though.
want
He's
that.
incredibly talented and can't get good work for some reason.
Who can?
Like, James Marsden. Like,
Well,
baffles
he missed
me.
his shot. In
Yeah,
my
he
opinion.
blew it.
He kind of blew it.
How?
Well, at least with X-Men, like I think it's going backwards. If you're going back to him, we need a young Cyclops.
Really?
We need
I
a
think
Cyclops
he's
that will
timeless.
actually be a character and not just throwaway window dressing.
Well, I would place that more at the script than him, honestly.
Well, I'm not saying it's his
Okay.
fault, but it's like it needs to be
It's
an actor
his-
they're willing to
Where it
write
is-
that for.
Where it is his fault is when he left for Superman Returns.
Yeah.
That killed him.
Literally.
Yeah.
So, yeah, anyway, see Days of Future Past. We went
It's
on for
excellent.
one there, yeah.
Like right now, it's the movie of the summer.
It made me feel like the first time I saw X-Men when I was a little kid.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and actually,
I
that's
hadn't
a
had
good
that-
transition.
I hadn't had that feeling from an X-Men movie since the first and second one.
Well, because that's our main topic today, talking about how we got into superheroes. Like, for me, X2 was such an important stage in, my development in this fandom. And this is what, I remember always paying attention to the movie news for X3 and wanting to see where that goes. This is what we were all waiting for and what we deserved. So
Yes,
happy
most
to see
definitely.
that.
Most definitely. I got my K-Grams Beast back. That made me happy.
Yeah.
Because that was like, actually,
Nicholas
the
Hoult,
biggest waste of Beast. Even though he was one of the cooler parts.
They made
of that
him
movie.
work, yeah. That's why.
I mean, like, that movie being that movie, it was just like, wanted him in a better.
And of course, he's the only one of
He's
the
my
only
dream casting.
characters from the first one. Like, like
From
Nicholas
X3.
Hoult. No, I'm talking about Nicholas Hoult.
Oh, yeah.
From First Class to still have a role in this next one because for some reason Bryan Singer has a hard-on for him.
Yeah.
No pun intended. Because they made that Jack the Giant Killer Slayer movie together.
Yeah, I didn't care for Nicholas Hoult as Beast, although I always wanted to play Beast in that because I was like, I'm the same age. Like between Nicholas Hoult and me, who would you peg for a young Kelsey Grammer? Like, I don't know.
You could probably pull it off better.
Yeah. I'm Harry.
He was
I'm Harry.
Yeah,
I
also
got
that.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, it's moving on to
The actual topic.
The origins. Scott,
Okay.
take it away.
Yeah, so superheroes have always been around, for me. I was born in 1991, so Superman, Batman, very well established at that time. I wasn't overly into superheroes as a young kid. I remember I had a pair of Batman pajamas, though, that, like, I was maybe 4 or 5. I would not take them off. And I love my dad's, like, tactic for trying to convince, getting the kids' logic is, well, Batman needs to be Bruce Wayne sometimes, but I was young enough that who's Bruce Wayne?
Yeah.
And I had a few Batman toys and a couple Spider-Man things. I think I had some slippers with Spider-Man on it. But mainly, like, my older cousins watched Fox Kids, so I knew them tangentially through that. And, here and there I knew some things, but it wasn't until I was, like, 10 when my dad had recorded on AMC the 1966 Batman the movie with Adam West, and we watched that together, and that really for me was such a big turning point because I loved older shows and things, and that started rerunning on TV Land, but I also loved adventure Star Wars and Indiana Jones, and that just I was young enough where I could take that, seriously.
Yeah.
But it was still fun,
Yeah.
Just those 4 character actors as villains bouncing off of each other. But there's a morality to it, too, where, Batman's line, it's not up to mortals like us to mess with human life. I took it seriously, and then I watched the other Batman movies that were released before then, and I honestly didn't care for Tim Burton's Batman at all. Even as a kid, I was like, there's no plot to this. But Batman Forever, I watched so many times. I get where people are disappointed, but as a kid, it was just...
It was fine, man.
Yeah, it was fun. And I was a big Jim Carrey fan, too. His first 5 films with that, the Ace Ventura movies, Mask, Dumb and Dumber, I think it's just a perfect comedy filmography. So I really got into Batman with what was available. But then Spider-Man came out. And I was an 11-year-old when Spider-Man came to theaters. And that was a phenomenon. What I hear about, the first Superman movie and the first Batman movie, that's what this was. It was a big step forward, and everyone loved it. I mean, people who didn't go to movies were talking about it. Family members of mine were seeing it multiple times and quoting it, and that kiss, that upside down in the rain, that was a big deal. And it's you've got From Here to Eternity, Lady and the Tramp, Spider-Man as iconic movie kisses.
It's as far as contemporary, that's the only one that I can think of that has any sort of staying power.
I saw that alleyway when I was touring one of the studios in LA. It's the same alleyway, too, that they used in Gremlins for...
where he buys the Mogwai?
Where the shop is. It's the same exact
awesome.
set for that. But it's...
So, Spider-Man was a huge deal, and a lot of Marvel cartoons were running on ABC Family, and so I kind of remember them from when I was younger, seeing them so I watched as much as I could, Spider-Man the Animated Series being the one they committed to the most. Sometimes they'd play X-Men, Incredible Hulk, Amazing Friends, which I love. But, at the time, in 2002, they weren't all available. I didn't have a DVD player. There were some videos, but, there's no Netflix, internet, you couldn't stream anything on. So if you didn't see them when they were airing or you didn't record them, they were gone. If they got off the schedule, you didn't know when it was. So there was kind of a, research as much as I can about these series, find, I miss that. I miss that commitment to something and that kind of sacredness.
It's too easy now.
It is. It really is. So I watched a lot of that, and then the merchandise for Spider-Man was just huge and everywhere. And I had always, I love toys. I have a big bucket of Disney. My mom would call them critters, and Star Wars action figures and Legos. So I got into superhero toys with Spider-Man. I had some old Batman ones from when I was a little kid, which bothered me that none of them were the same size.
Yeah.
But also what bothered me was that there were so many variations of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
When you only needed one Spider-Man, you only need the hero, and then you need a lot of villains so they can go on multiple adventures.
Your special aquatic suit Spider-Man.
Yeah, or battle-ravaged Spider-Man, or fisherman Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But, so, also kind of like TV, there was a sacredness to the toys, when it's like, oh man, I hope that the one lizard and Doc Ock at Kmart are still there by Christmas,
Or you gotta do the shifty, the ultimate little kid move of hiding it behind something that you don't think will sell.
Yeah. When I worked at Toys R Us, I, recommended that to a kid, and, my boss is like, don't tell him to do that. You can't do that.
Because then we just have to put it away later that night.
Yeah.
When you're facing up the story.
And I played with action figures, longer than, I was supposed to admit in middle school and junior high.
Same.
Still have a big collection. And then I was at B. Dalton, I remember, with my parents, and I saw this Spider-Man Ultimate Visual Guide by Tom DeFalco, one of the Dorling Kingsley, DK books. And I bought that, and I, just devoured it, constantly reading it, memorizing it, and it's a history of the comics. It was written and compiled in such a way that you felt the story and understood the characters. So I got, gradually the X-Men one by Pete Sanderson and the other DeFalco, Hulk, Fantastic Four, Avengers ones. And I also got, I think Scott Beatty was his name, who did the DC ones for Superman, Batman, and Justice League. Those weren't as good. They were much thinner, and they were more pictures and didn't tell stories. Yeah. So honestly, that right there is why I'm a Marvel guy. Because Marvel hooked me with their
with their reference books.
Exactly. And I went back to those so much. I had a passion for them. And this is when the internet was a pain to use.
Yeah.
It was dial-up. Yeah. It was an inconvenience.
DSL if you were
Mom,
lucky.
get off the phone.
Exactly. And so any books like that were a reference that I needed. And also, what kind of made me a Marvel guy was that Barnes & Noble had reprints, or paperback reprints of Marvel Masterworks.
Oh, yeah. So
I got, early Amazing Spider-Man and Fantastic Four and Claremont and Burns' Uncanny X-Men. And that made me just love Marvel. Mm-hmm. And I had gone to Comic Junction, a local comic book store, for years, as a kid, but I only did, Disney stuff, or other cartoons, or Hot Stuff, and other Harvey comics. But then when I was getting superheroes, I got a lot of those, back issues. Yeah. I'd experiment all over the place if I was interested in something, get, a lot of Marvel team-up, and, from 90s and 80s. And then around 2004, I think it was Spider-Man 2 that made me just, and also the internet was more convenient, so I was online a lot more. It's I wonder what's happening in X-Men now, who's on the team, so that's kind of around Reload and the Chuck Austin run, actually, and Astonishing X-Men and Claremont on Uncanny, so I was, and I kept up with comics just, all over the place, and Avengers Disassembled happened not long after, so that was kind of the first Marvel event comic, and when Avengers started to be relevant. And all through that time, I was loving, any movie that would come out. Some, you just liked because that was all you had, Daredevil or Fantastic Four, but then you still had Spider-Man 2 and Incredibles, and, classics, and cartoons, Teen Titans, Justice League, whenever it aired, I think is the best superhero cartoon, but the 2003 Ninja Turtles, X-Men Evolution I loved, and just reruns of anything I could find. So, and also the comic book Superheroes Unmasked documentary on the History Channel. Have you ever seen that?
Yep.
That was one where it was like, that made me realize, this is an art form, and there's people behind it, and there's a history to it. Yeah. So I rewatched that so many times. My dad had taped it for me, and just Stan Lee in general also was such an accessible figure. Yeah. That, he's so fun. For Christmas or my birthday one year, I got like a book where it's kind of like a you press a button and Stan Lee like tells stories.
Oh my god! Really?
But it's like
it's
amazing, and his voice is so incredible. Yeah. And I mean, it has a standard and they didn't want to publish Spider-Man. It's like, Stan, don't you know what hero is? Or I always wanted them to call the mutants, but they also have like weird stories, like and Howling Commandos was an awful title, but it sold well, and it was just fun.
It's just Stan Lee getting his comebacks,
getting his money, right?
Yeah. But that was basically me up until high school, where I ran to you, Brodsho, and you were keeping up with comics. So up until then, it was kind of just me in a bubble and online and reading things. Yep. So that's how I became a geek, I guess, more or less.
All right. I remember that back in high school, because that was when I was starting to come out more as a fan.
Yeah.
And so being able to find a couple other people.
Well, I remember like my first improv practice in high school. Brodsho and I were on the same improv team, and like you had brought an issue of Wizard.
Oh yeah.
And like Wilson Cartwright, another member, a friend of ours, was like, and Astonishing X-Men, they're like, what's in the box? I think it's Jean Grey's ashes or something. And just hearing someone talk about that openly was fun.
Yeah, yep. Really good stuff.
So Brodsho, what about you with superheroes?
Right. Well, I've kind of always liked superheroes. From, as long as I can remember, really. From Power Rangers, which, superheroes.
Yeah.
And the old Fox Kids, X-Men, Spider-Man, all that stuff, and, Batman the Animated Series and stuff like that. I would get comics, too, when I never would go to, like, a comic store back then. It was like if my family went to Fleet Farm.
Yeah. I
went over to the corner where they had the comics while they were doing shopping, and would sit there and read a bunch and then find a couple that I would like. And like, I remember big time when they started rerunning Batman the Animated Series on Cartoon Network with the now famous, I am vengeance, I am light, I am Batman, like that tag.
Mm-hmm.
That's when that came out, like, and all that stuff on there, from, Japanese versions of superheroes, like Ronin Warriors and Voltron and stuff like that I used to watch all the time. So it's always been present, and, every time at Fleet Farm I'd get comics, whether it be, I'd get X-Men a lot, and the one I got most was, like, Sonic the Hedgehog and Knuckles and stuff when I was younger. And then, but I'd also,
those kids' comics are underrated.
Well, especially the Sonic ones were great. Yeah. But they, but other ones for more standout things. Looking back now that I have from when I was getting like an issue of the Perez Avengers.
Oh yeah.
And like the Morrison Justice League, and like some Deadpool from like the
Joe Kelly
run.
Yeah, and those 3 runs are like revolutionary.
So I'd have all those. Plus, I had some of my brother's old ones from when he was younger. Like I'm pretty sure I can't find it right now, but there's like an X-Force #1 in there, and like a bunch of those older ones. But I was
keep the trading card.
Yeah, well, that's that too. I had binders full of trading cards of that stuff too, and like action figures. Like I had a bunch of mine, Spider-Man, X-Men, Batman, and then I had a bunch of my brother's old Batman ones from like Returns and stuff like that, or first Batman, and and they, I remember I had like a DuckTales duffel bag that was like stuffed full of Batman action figures and stuff, and then I had like a Vikings duffel bag filled with Power Rangers action figures, and action figures is something I still keep up to with today. Yeah, just getting the ones to kind of stand around and fool around with every once in a while. But and and Star Wars too, because Jedi basically are superheroes. Like you know what I mean. One of my first big memories when I was, I think, like about 7. I got a tetanus booster shot.
Oh yeah.
And it hurt and I wasn't feeling whatever, and I was kind of grumpy, and my parents were like, "Hey, you want to go get like a holder for your car for like one of my football cards I had that was autographed?" And we ended up going to Paradox.
Oh yeah.
Which is another local comic store. And I remember going in there and standing up at the register. My arm was hurting, and I remember looking up, and there's a box of Green Lantern PVC figures, like the little tiny ones. I remember seeing, Ganthet and, the Guardian, and I remember seeing Guy Gardner, and I was thinking he was a bad guy, even though he was a Green Lantern, he just looked like a bad guy.
He was a bad guy.
Well, he has red hair.
Yeah, exactly. And then and Kyle Rayner and all those guys, I remember seeing that, and so that was kind of my, attraction to Green Lantern kind of started there. And I'd get, Green Lantern comics, too, when I was at, Fleet Farm and stuff, and I remember one of the early comic things that hooked me was the Draco storyline.
Really? Yeah, that Chuck Austin thing.
Yeah, I know.
It's
Chuck
accessible.
Austin.
I don't know.
When he said that, I got smart, because I was like, that was one of the things I really tried to keep up with. Like, I'd be like, "Mom, are we going to Fleet Farm this week? Are we going to Fleet Farm this week?" Because I was like, I wanted to get the next one, and I had most of them except for the last few.
Well, and
but it was
just great artists too. Like for me,
exactly.
Like
the artist was good on it, and I was always a big Nightcrawler guy, and so a Nightcrawler centric story that was cool. But yeah, then X-Men came out.
Yeah,
I remember going to that with one of my friends and my dad, and that was just like, because it was, like I said, like, I'd watch Fox Kids a lot, so X-Men, Spider-Man, even the Avengers.
United They Stand,
so, like, all those shows I was, big fan of, even Avengers, because I had an armored Hawkeye action figure from that.
Those costumes are so ridiculous.
I know. But then again, that was giving me insight into characters I didn't know from those too. You know what I mean? Like those were characters I weren't familiar with. I wasn't familiar with. But yeah, that X-Men movie came out and it was amazing. And after that, Spider-Man came out, and I was just like, And we had that first run of Marvel movies, and that got me, really excited. I watched all the. Me too. Not a big Burton Batman fan, but Forever I watched all the time. Batman and Robin I owned and watched sometimes.
That never bothered me a whole lot.
No, yeah, exactly. It was fine kids fare, but when you get older, you see where all the
it's
the
not
crap
good.
was. The Batman, the Batman Mastercard.
Credit card.
I thought that was awesome.
Forever, yeah. That was one of the first little Easter egg things I noticed when I was a kid. That the expiration date was forever. I was like, but yeah, stuff like that, and after so the movies were kept coming. Then I started getting some of those DK books too.
Right.
I had the X-Men one. I had the Avengers one. The X-Men one I read like it was the Bible. I read that one so many times of every character.
It's tough to piece together, but you want to.
Exactly.
It's a tough history.
Yeah, yep. And I mean, all the while I've always had this liking of Green Lantern, where it was I don't know entirely where it came from, if it was just simply the fact that I saw those figures when I was a little kid and thought they looked cool, if it was something else along the line, like that event, the Superman animated series.
Yeah, Kyle Rayner.
He was in there, and I don't know, and I had this, at the same time, though, very, big attraction to the Hal Jordan version, even though I never saw him in comics.
Okay.
I don't know why.
What is the appeal, just as a Marvel guy, what is it that makes Hal Jordan stand apart?
Well, for me, I've always, anxiety has always been a thing with me, and whether I knew it or not when I was younger, and like, you know, being scared of stuff. And this was somebody who has the ability to overcome great fear. This is the person who looks fear in the face and is just like, you know, shove it. Like, fear, meh. My willpower, and willpower is having, you know, the strength to overcome that, and the strength to then use it to your benefit. That was the attraction to me, because of, you know, my personal experience and stuff. That was very kind of reflective too. And I've always, another reason I've always been a big DC guy. I love like mythology. I love Greek mythology, Roman mythology, you know, Norse mythology. I love mythology, and that, pun intended, pantheon of characters in DC is very mythological, very grandiose, very. It feels like it's, you know, the next kind of gods, kind of, and which it fulfills some of those things for people. You know what I mean? That the old gods used to, where they encourage certain attributes and certain whatever.
It has its Arthurian elements and the new gods. And all that.
Exactly. So I love that stuff and the deep continuity. I'm such a continuity hound. That's just like perfect. That's why I've always been a big fan of DC. But I remember it was 2004, 2005. I think it was 2005. It was when I was first year in high school.
That would have been 2004, 2005.
2008, yeah. Or no, 2000, well, sophomore year of high school. It was my first year in the high school building here in Fargo.
Oh, okay.
So it was 2005, 2006.
Small town kid talking over here.
Well, a lot of people, you know, 9th grade is freshman year. But, I mean, we had some weird setup. But I remember going, it must have been right before sophomore year started, but I remember going to Comic Junction because I had seen, I don't know what made me look or whatever, but I saw that Green Lantern Rebirth was coming out in hardcover. And I went to Comic Junction, picked that up, read it, and that was it. Like, I was just, I was hooked. I was like, okay, this is it. This is it, guys. So I started picking up, I remember from there, I picked up all the issues of Green Lantern, the series that had started after that Johns wrote. I picked up all, I think it was like 10 issues deep by the time I started. And then there was a Green Lantern Corps Recharge series written by Johns that was right after that too, that I picked up and I started keeping up with then. My real big entry into Marvel comics, beside being a big fan since the cartoons and stuff, was Civil War.
That was huge.
Yeah,
like,
was
just internet speculation. I remember in high school,
ridiculous.
I remember Strike, actually. We, the final issue for, I think, Macbeth we were in, and issue 7 came out, and you had ran to get it, and we were trying to read it, like, while we were getting our final notes about the show.
That was some real business. I had damn near every tie-in for that too. Which was my first first realization of how financially irresponsible event tie-ins are.
Especially when they're as epic as that one was.
Well, and also the realization that, hey, tie-ins aren't really that necessary.
No.
There's only a couple that were, like Amazing Spider-Man.
Wolverine, surprisingly, was good. That Guggenheim run.
Yep, I enjoyed that too. But, yeah, so then from there I just started kind of consuming from there. And then, you know, Wikipedia happened. And that, all of a sudden, it was like, all right, I'm learning everything.
That wasn't dangerous for me as a kid.
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking when I was listening to your talk. I was like,
as soon as that came around, you know. Well, like I said, you know, I had those DK publishing books too, where I was like, you know, read that X-Men one through like 30 times and was like jealous whenever a new edition came out with more stuff, and I was just like, But Wikipedia happened, and I was just like, all right, I'm learning everything I can. And it got to the point, you know, I'm buying comics every week. You know, movies. I remember that first shot they released of the classic Iron Man suit, the first Iron Man suit, when they were doing the first movie, and just the excitement that I felt from that. I was just like, and stuff getting going on Dark Knight and stuff, and just all that stuff, just building more inside, and I'm just like, yeah, I've just consumed since then to the point where like, I get into like pirating comics and just like entire huge old runs, or like I literally had one that's every issue of Amazing Spider-Man plus every issue for the crossover events that happen in one big folder. Like I have some shit when it comes to like.
You also spent a lot of time acquiring like every like Uncanny X-Men.
That too. And even through my a hard drive breakdown where I lost like I had one external hard drive and it just shit the bed.
Gigabytes upon gigabytes
and
lost.
Yeah, exactly. And then I got a new one and I was like, all right, it's time to start this again. And I just compiled. I have most of everything that I had on there, thanks to some very elaborate torrents that I remembered. But that's beside the point. It's because it's one of those things that shows my love and consumption of this form of media is greater than my financial abilities allow me. It's
the struggle is real.
I want to read as much as I can, so it's just like absorbing all that stuff. And I really got into creators, finding creators I liked, like Johns and Jim Lee and all these guys, realizing things like the whole Jim Lee designed the 90s X-Men costumes, which were in the TV show that I loved so much. And then like I think it all came to a point when a few years ago when Chuck, me, and Matt Miller, our other friend, went to Comic-Con and getting to meet some of those guys, like getting to meet Jeff Johns, getting to meet Jim Lee. It was cool. And now I've got art books. I've got my Jim Lee art book that's signed by Jim Lee. I got Jack Kirby one, who is like my end all be all. I love Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby's my shit. That's part of the reason I hate Stan Lee so much. Still DC Encyclopedia, like all this stuff, the Batman Vault book, just as much. Not crap, but as much stuff as I can acquire. I do, and it's expanded greatly since I was a kid, but it had always been there in some sort. I just hadn't tapped into it quite.
Well, that's what fandom seems to be. It seems to be a lot about discovery. As much as you can get, you find pieces here and there.
Because I had like a Batman the Animated Series like play tent when I was a little kid and shit, and like it was. I mean,
those cartoons merchandised really well.
I know.
Remember Spider-Man gum?
So that's another thing that was kind of depressing. Is when you go back trying to watch some of those things that
it's really hard to do that.
They don't age well. The only thing that ages well from then was like Batman the Animated Series aged well. Spider-Man aged all right.
X-Men did the themes.
X-Men. That was one I went recently tried and watch again, and that was tough. X-Men was
the
tough
animation
and even some of the voice work. It was tough. And like going back and watching some of those like the Japanese adapted ones, like Voltron, that was really hard. That I was like, wait. They just took a cartoon, scrapped its actual premise, and wrote a whole new one around it. Like, some of that stuff, it's hard going back. So it's like, kind of like you don't want to meet your heroes type thing. Don't revisit things that you really loved when you were a kid. Like, unless you know. Unless you know it's still going to... Because, like I said, that was just kind of rushing. You get back there and it's just
for me, with Batman Forever, I'm always going to love that movie.
Me too.
I'm not going to be able to defend it critically, but, I'm always going to be able to love it. So
exactly. But yeah, it was just like, it was too, like you said, with Fantastic Four and stuff. Like, I liked those movies when they initially came out when I was younger. Upon viewing them again, I'm just like, I don't know how, but it's been a long storied road with me with comics, and I know for sure I definitely wouldn't be the same person, or be like as interested as I am in learning about things if it weren't for that. Because that sparked something.
Yeah.
Sparked some shit.
Yeah.
You know, to the point where, you know, coming up with own story ideas and like it's just entrenched. So entrenched in me at this point. It's just, it's not even an option. It's just like, yeah, this is still going to be part of me.
Yeah. What about you, Chuck?
After listening to the two of you, I feel kind of like an outsider. It's like granted, we did share a lot of the, you know, like the same experiences with some of it. But it's like I grew up in a home without television, and the only stuff I got to watch were like the movies my parents bought or rented, or like what I was able to see when we would go over to like my grandma's house or to like a friend's house and we could watch TV. So it's like I never got to see anything all the way through. I always saw bits and pieces. So it was always really confusing when all of a sudden the Power Rangers had different Zords, or like when all of a sudden Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles got really dark.
Yeah,
like
that was
in the original series,
Turtles was some real shit for me.
It got really dark at one point. Like there's and I was like, how the hell did we get here? It's like, how the hell did we get here? Like, so it was really truncated. My experience was like really truncated for a lot of things, and like living in a small town, it's like I never read comic books.
Nothing available.
Kind of in your bubble type thing.
Exactly, and it's like it's not that my parents would even let me get any of those anyway. It's like it took some convincing to even let me go see X-Men just because, you know, my mom saw Mystique in the trailer and was scandalized. Or like on a poster.
And Wolverine having stabby things.
Well, she didn't care too well. Like she did kind of. I'm sure like the violence was always a pretty sticky issue with her. But like when I was 13, we went to visit family on the West Coast, and my uncle, who happens to be like a starving professional actor out there, he had this great, you know, collection of books. And they didn't have cable or anything like that, but it's like we were just one night. There was just nothing going on while we were visiting, and I was just going through his shelf, and I found this awesome hardcover that had both Batman Year One, and The Dark Knight Returns in it.
Ooh, was it like a custom hardcover?
I don't think so. Like it was legit release. It was both of them in one volume.
It was like a Frank Miller collection.
Yeah, and I was just like, whoa, it's a Batman comic, and the only comic I'd ever read was this random Fantastic Four one that a mom of one of my friends got us at a gas station. So, but like no experience at all. Yeah. But it's like reading this, I was just like Year One blew my mind. Yeah. Because I was like this. I was just kind of surprised that it was so pared down compared to what I thought Batman was, which was the '66 movie and Batman Returns, because I didn't see the first Burton Batman until like years later.
Same here.
And I never saw Forever. I still have never seen Forever.
Oh, we need to watch it.
I only saw Batman and Robin on TV years later. Yeah, like I said, it just wasn't available to me. No. I was really controlled what I was allowed to consume at that age. Yep. But so I was reading that, and I was just like, "Holy crap!" You know, like for the Year One was awesome. I was like, "What's the next one? What's Returns?" Yeah. And then my brain was just fried. Like I couldn't keep up with it. I couldn't handle it. I just knew especially like towards the end when he was fighting Superman, I was just like, "What the fuck is going on?" I was like, "Well, how did we get here?" You know, yet again, kind of like with you know, like things like being behind, catching up, but. That's just kind of like my story as a nerd, I guess. And then around that time, I also saw Memento, and I really got into film. Yeah. And then when I saw that Nolan was doing Batman Begins, I was just like, oh dang, you know, this is really neat. This is really cool.
So was it? Yeah. Did it take that long to 2005 to get into superhero movies, or did you? I had always
been. I had been into the movies. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I just didn't want to rehash a lot of it. But like when I kind of liked them, but it's like I was really skewing more towards like art house cinema around that time. I was becoming a movie snob because my family got Netflix, so I loved Batman Begins. It blew my mind. Yeah, like I was like this, just as a movie.
That was a big moment for me too. Was Begins.
Great. Like, Begins was like the point, and then like read, and then like, Wikipedia becoming a thing, and then like finding out that there's all these other things out there, and then like seeing Sin City, just like running into Frank Miller again, and then realizing that this is a graphic novel series that I would never I was like, I'll never get to read this, because my parents will never let me buy it, and then I went to college in 2008 and got to see The Dark Knight. That was pretty huge. I was like into that. And in Wikipedia reading, I knew that it was based on something called The Long Halloween. Partly, and then here my roommate just happens to be this super nerd named Erik Brodsho, and then he gave me The Long Halloween to read. I read that, and I was like, well, this is tits. What else can you give me? And then it was just a black hole.
I just cracked into my stock of
Brodsho was your dealer.
It was towards the end. I remember I had like a couple plastic bags that were just like full of graphic novels that I had brought up.
Yeah, just for me.
Yeah, and for me to reread later too, and then it was just like sitting in my room and just like bunches of Watchmen and
the Dark Victory.
When we went to
we went to the Watchmen midnight. But then and then I kind of went down the digital piracy road as well, and I just dove into the Marvel Ultimate Universe.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I just really fell in love with that. I just thought that was so neat. Because that was my first Marvel experience. And then I read Civil War. Yeah. And then I got into like the Bucky era Captain America that I was able to get.
That's the best.
And then I started buying comics myself, and a lot of what I was into was mostly DC, like the Grant Morrison Batman stuff, Green Lantern. But then
because that was around the time when I started to get salty with Marvel too, because it's because I was starting to get event fatigue. Yeah. They just kept, which they're still doing now, is they're pumping events out every year. So now they're doing like 2 a year. That was starting to get me salty, and then I just started finding things to not like about Marvel.
But like the stuff that Marvel did have that I loved, was the X-Men. I really loved that that particular mythos, because that's what Brodshow. What I love is just overarching continuity.
If there's anything that has continuity up to shit, it's X-Men.
And around that time, like in the recent history, it was like all of the consequences from House of M. And like one summer when I was in high school, my sister, a friend of my sister's was visiting, and she was super, super into Spider-Man. So much so that she would have comics mailed to her if she couldn't get them any other way. Yeah. So I read a House of M issue about Spider-Man's new life, and I was just at that time, because I was just like, well, what the hell is going on in this? And then years later, I finally got to read House of M. But then everything having to do with what the X-Men were experiencing,
and now we love alternate realities.
What the X-Men were experiencing in that, in that particular era, I just really grabbed onto. And right when I started buying comics was when Hope, the character Hope, came into the scene, and then Cable, who I had fallen in love with from Cable and Deadpool, came in, and then I was buying that story, because to me it was like this was something I was actually invested in, and I followed it all the way to its conclusion. Like, what was the name of that event? Second Coming. It really left.
Fraction was not.
It left like a kind of a sour taste in my mouth, but I needed to see it through.
Yeah,
and
that's the true. The true fan geek.
Yeah, it's like, I don't like this, but I'm going to keep going.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir, may have another.
And and the same kind of happened with the Vulcan saga too, which was another major one that I fell in love with.
That was amazing. Because
that whole story was so neat. Because when I was,
Marvel Cosmic was huge for me. Granted, the 2000s ones.
Granted, I was really controlled by what I could read by my parents, but we still had this huge library in our basement. That was just nothing but 60s, 70s, 80s, great science fiction books. So it's I read Dune when I was 8 years old. Yeah, and stuff like that, and then and getting into Cosmic Marvel was just awesome, because I just loved everything about that. And
that's why we're getting schoolgirls about
Guardians of the Galaxy is really the Marvel movie that I've been waiting for ever since I started reading that. I haven't waited nearly as long as some people, I'm aware. But the fact that they're actually doing that makes me so happy, because this is the kind of movie that you don't see made, period. Not let alone a superhero movie.
It's just like how those comics, you don't see those.
Just a high concept space opera. With
I mean, you look at what we've got recently with John Carter and Prometheus and even Green Lantern. We've been missing that fun sci-fi space odyssey.
Space romps, man. That's what we've been missing. And that looks really exciting. I'm really excited for it. But in the end, it's like most of my comic reading is actually in non-superhero stuff. It's like I love Invincible. Invincible is probably my favorite superhero book ever. But it's outside of the main, two.
Independent.
Like I love Vertigo stuff. I love reading that. I nerd out hard over Fables, with Bill Willingham's Fables, because it's mythologies and stuff that I already knew about and was invested in because I read a bunch of stuff like that. And even the miniseries, the 10th Kingdom. I watched that every week, and that is very. Similar premise to Fables. But I don't know. My experience is a little bit different from yours, but it's like I'm a late bloomer. But
better late than never.
And this was a good time to do it, because now it's like it's easier for me to distill down what I like.
Remember, Chuck Green, good things come to those who wait.
Exactly.
How are we doing in time, Chuck?
We're actually only at an hour 20, but
not bad.
Okay.
But if this kind of wraps it up.
If we want to, or we can do general discussion. So,
we can discuss.
You know what I want to talk about more. We should talk about Days of Future Past more.
Okay.
Honestly, because I feel like there's more to talk about.
Okay. Before we get into that, can we keep going on some of the geek origin stuff? Because there's a few questions stuff I want to ask. First off, I remember when I met you. It took like a year before I saw you in person, because you commented on Brodsho's comic book related statuses. And I friended you after that. So soon, whenever any of the three of us wrote something about comics or geek stuff, it was like a three-way circle jerk with all of us comics.
Pretty much.
It's pretty much like this podcast.
Pretty much.
And still is.
Except now people can listen to it and take a couple hours out of the day to
and they're like, I don't care about this. I didn't care about this when you were in high school. I don't care about it now.
I hide your Facebook posts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of that. So, what about families? We talk about that kind of, but how did families react to you liking superheroes and comics?
Mine were fine with it.
Yeah, yours.
See, liking superheroes.
My parents
have
have
a problem.
Through up until even recently, consistently supported my comic book buying, my habit. So to the point where in the past year or whatever, when I didn't have a job, my parents were helping me get comics and stuff like that, because they knew, especially my mom knew how important that was for me. So so they've always been super supportive of it, especially my mom, and and she loves going to the movies and stuff all the time. So I'll go to a movie with friends, and then I'm like, I'll get to go again with my mom later and see it again. And
for me,
it's always been. I mean, there's obviously been it's always been more about spending money than it is getting too far into something. Since I have something I'm passionate about, they're good.
Yeah, for me, I like the moments when, my parents are never going to read a comic or anything, but when they do show an interest, I remember once my dad, cousin, uncle, and I were coming back from World of Outlaws, which we went to see, a car racing thing, and so Iron Man 2 had just came out, and my uncle and cousin had seen that as well, and they were talking about and just going, just a lot of and we're wondering what's going to happen in the next movie.
Because of the Thor hammer reveal, right?
Spider-Man 2.
Oh, I thought you said Iron Man.
No, Spider-Man 2. This is when I was 13.
Okay.
And my dad asked Scott what happened next in the comics. That was one of the validating moments of he gets it. Might not ask about it a lot or take interest himself, but that was a really cool moment for me.
Yeah, that's same when my dad actually just to see what all the hubbub was about with me, was asked, or I had him read Rebirth, I think, and one night I came down and from my room, and he was sitting there reading it, and I was just like, yeah, that's awesome. And the same, like, my mom would be like, so what's the deal with this, when she'd see a trailer for a new superhero movie, and even to this day, you know, I'll talk to her about that stuff, and she likes that stuff too. So it's, stuff like that was always really, really cool, validating, almost.
And see, like, when I came home from college and I was reading comics, and like my family like kind of had the view that it was kind of something that was juvenile, not something that someone should be into.
But which was something I would made sure when I was getting into it to be like, hey, it's not that. It's not that.
Well, and like in the way that my way of like kind of like setting them straight, you know, was
Watchmen.
no. Well, I gave my dad Watchmen to read, and my dad is, is a kind of like he's an intellectual. Is the best way to describe him. It's like he has his profession, but he just loves thinking about things. So he found it very fascinating, and we got to talk about it a lot. Nice. But like Christmas after my baptism in comic book reading, I decided that I was just going to set my entire family straight, and I bought every single person in my family a graphic novel. Like I got my dad The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I didn't get my mom a comic, I guess. So not everyone, but I got my sister. I got all of my sisters one. Like my sister Monica, I gave her the graphic novel adaptation of Brian Jakes' Redwall.
Okay.
See, like we were nerds about Redwall because we own every single Redwall book. And then, like my sister Katie, I got her Pride of Baghdad, which is a graphic novel.
Brian K. Vaughan.
But Brian K. Vaughan did about these lions that were kept in one of Saddam Hussein's palaces and whatnot. It was really beautiful.
There was a English class at NDSU that taught that book.
And it's like, and this is kind of a personal story, but it's like we got into some kind of a fight that particular holiday, my sister Katie and I, and she was just really mad at me or something, and I was mad at her, and then like she like had to walk away and like went into her room, and and I went in to apologize to her like a few hours later, and she had just finished reading Pride of Baghdad, and and then she sat down and she was just like, she said, you know what, it's like I forget what we were fighting about, but she was just kind of like, I kind of saw the validation from that into this. Oh, because I wanted to play a video game, because I was trying to beat BioShock, and she was just bugging me, and I was just like, I want to take this time to do this. I'm sorry,
I've got free time.
This has some meaning to me that I want to do, and and then she actually read it, and she kind of saw the worth in it and the message from it. And so then she kind of bought into it, and it's on her bookshelf now at home. And my sister Molly, I got her hooked on the Fables bug, and so she read every single issue of Fables as I bought them. Okay. Up until a certain character died, and then she was just like, "No, I'm done." But then the best part is that now, as the series is ending, they're setting it up so that character gets to come back. Which is frustrating, but it took some work to get my family to warm up to this particular interest of mine.
One of the things that has been cool for me is getting my oldest nephew into it. Yeah. He's 2 now, but like when he was gonna be born, I was like, I'm gonna like smother the shit out of him with superhero stuff. I'm gonna corrupt him young, and I have. I got him like a Green Lantern onesie. I got him like the little tykes or the little play school little people or whatever. Like DC superhero things and like and then like and storybooks and all this stuff and now like and then it kind of felt good because then his parents started getting him superhero stuff, and I find out that when they're were pregnant with my now youngest nephew, they were gonna move him to a new room. And when they were doing his room, they decided to do it superhero themed.
Oh, awesome! And
so, like, they painted the room so it looked like a skyline, like a city skyline, and with buildings and stuff. And it's got like a bat signal, except in the middle of the bat, it's got his initial. Oh, awesome. And then like there's another signal with his brother's initial in it and stuff. And They painted his dresser like a phone booth, and there's a bunch of like pillows and toys and all this stuff of just superhero stuff. And one of the great things I got to do was this last free comic book day. I took my nephew with my brother to that, and we went and got him a bunch of free books and stuff. And then my brother let him pick out an action figure, and they had at Paradox where we went. They had just this huge table that was filled with boxes of old 90s action figures. So I was seeing stuff that I used to have from,
nice.
like an old Wolverine action figure I used to have, and like, I used to have that, I used to have that one. And then the one he ended up getting was a Captain America action figure, and I forget, it was like a, Shock, whatever, I don't know, was the series. And it was like a normal Captain America essentially, but then I flipped over and looked at the back, and part of that series was this like Shock Armor Spider-Man, which was a toy I had, and I was just like, I had this one too. So it was like some of that kind of coming full circle, and just like
You could have hooked a brother up. You
Yeah.
didn't have to spend money.
yeah, it's cool just seeing being able to pass that on.
So before you get to Days of Future Past again, which I can see Chuck really wants to.
Oh no! I'm just letting you guys talk. I don't want the interrupter train happening.
Oh no, it's fine. Just a discussion. But let's do a lightning round of kind of questions. So ask like favorite, least favorite things. And
Okay,
we'll just
I like this.
Fun. Yeah. Okay. So favorite superhero movie.
Sure.
I need to think on that.
Okay.
Me, I'm gonna go X2.
Spider-Man 2.
Spider-Man 2. You know what? This is going to be really contrarian, but I loved The Dark Knight Rises.
Okay.
Alright.
That's like
Fair.
Yeah.
That was a good. I love that too, because you have to view that series as a series, as one big whole, and that is the perfect end.
Maybe not. Oh,
It hit all the right notes for me. It did everything I needed.
I won't take that away from you.
Yeah. It wrapped up everything that was presented in that first movie. That's why I like that.
I know people have their issues with it,
one,
but
by
I had a really strong emotional reaction to it when it was done.
Okay. So what about worst superhero movie?
Worst superhero movie, Elektra.
Zoom Academy for Superheroes.
which we're gonna have to watch because I haven't seen that. God, like the one that I'm gonna say Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah,
that movie nearly killed me.
Listen to last podcast. Views on that. Favorite superhero cartoon?
Batman the Animated Series.
Justice League Unlimited.
Batman the Animated Series.
See, I love JLU. I love it, but Batman Animated Series is where it's at.
It's a great. I mean, it was a huge game changer.
It's as strong as the JLU storytelling was. Batman, that was just so tight. Everything about that series was just tight. Yeah. Okay. That whole universe. I mean, if I could say the DC animated universe, then that.
Okay. Let's keep this as lightning round so you can get the. Okay, so favorite comic book writer.
Grant Morrison. No, I take that back. Okay. It's Warren Ellis.
Okay.
Jeff Johns.
Dan Slott.
Oh, okay.
Dan Slott,
yeah.
Fair
Marvel guy.
He made me like the idea of Superior Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Which I hated from the get-go.
That's what else? I don't know. Any other questions?
If there was something that hasn't been adapted into a live-action movie, TV show, whatever, cartoon, anything, if there's one thing that you would love to see, what would it be?
It's this like kind of comic strip, like they did as like a few specials and then comic strips and other Marvel issues, but Franklin Richards, Son of a Genius.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of Calvin Hobbes style where like and it's a great premise. It's like this 4-year-old kid has this dad who has all these inventions lying around, and Herbie, like this terrible character from a cartoon, is like his nanny, and I think that would make some great short subjects. Foxen's looking to that. Yeah.
They should. Brodsho.
I'm gonna go with a stock Brodsho answer here and say Sinestro Corps War. I need that.
Jeebus.
I need that. Just like even that end teaser of the otherwise like mad Green Lantern movie. That at very end where you see this Sinestro grab the yellow ring and put it on, and his costume turns to a Sinestro Corps costume.
The potential.
That gave me a fucking nerd boner like none other.
Okay, now I'm going to kind of keep you honest here. Something that hasn't been adapted. So, like, Green Lantern, they've already made a movie out of it.
But I guess.
So characters,
Alright, that hasn't been adapted at all.
Yeah.
I know. I'm gonna say, oh my God, Scalped.
They're working on it, aren't
That's
they?
gonna happen. So you're gonna get your wish. Yeah, of all places.
They're moving
Scalped.
the original programming, yeah.
I love that story so much. It's not even funny.
Yeah, and I would love to see Why the Last Man done finally.
Yeah.
It's
That'd
like
be cool.
It's not superhero or anything like that.
No.
But
It's comics.
it's a comic, but it would just make such a great series.
At least we're past the point where they wanted Shia LaBeouf.
And DJ Caruso is no longer involved with it. Thank God, because nothing that man has done has been exceptional.
No, not at all.
Okay, something I was looking at last night. Favorite Power Rangers series?
Okay.
Ooh.
All right. Who's gonna go first on that one?
As much as
I'm excited right now.
As much as I'm always gonna love Mighty Morphin and then Dino Thunder because of that, I'm going with SPD. I look back at that. No, honestly, the story arcs in that and just the settings, I love it.
Here's the Brodsho top 3. I went. No, it's got to, because I went back and watched every
one on Netflix. Yeah,
one up until
all there.
Up until I think where I stopped was at the end of Dino Thunder.
Right before SPD.
Right before SPD. I had the intent to keep going. I just moved on to other things that I was watching. But my top 3 is Time Force. Mm-hmm. If you haven't watched that one all the way through,
I haven't watched Time Force.
That one's friggin' amazing. Lost Galaxy. Uh-huh. Lost Galaxy is super good, and it's a tie between Zeo and In Space.
Okay. See, In Space is mine. Because that's the one I actually got to see from beginning to end.
Well, see,
and that's why it's my favorite, because it's the one I actually.
Power Rangers were always, like I said, big with me to the point where, to this day, I always try to catch at least an episode of whichever is the newest one, just so I see what's up.
Yeah.
But I mean, I saw every episode from. I mean, obviously not. I don't remember seeing every episode of Mighty Morphin, but I remember seeing every episode from Zeo up until they. Up until Dino Thunder, pretty much.
Yeah. It's great seeing Tommy back.
Yeah, I love
Tommy.
But what was awesome about In Space, not just the opening, the opening credits were awesome.
Yeah.
The music that then the countdown and everything, and the theme song was just amazing.
Yeah.
But
those are the theme songs.
But who was the ranger who had the sister who was raised by the villains?
Oh, that was the Red Ranger. That was oh God, what the fuck?
Yeah, because there were parts of that show where he was in some shady bar on some planet.
Is that Andros?
Yeah, Andros. That guy. I love that guy.
Yeah,
I loved that story.
Bro, that was cryo frozen. Was the Silver Ranger?
Yeah.
Or whatever.
See,
that was some cool shit.
I don't know. I just really dug into.
How about some non comic book geek influences, as in something that it could be something that eventually found its way into comic bookdom, but was something outside of it.
Well, Disney for me has always been huge. I'm a huge Disney buff. Just everything, the shorts, the animated features, some of the live action. Just Walt himself as a creator. I mean, and you don't think of Disney as geeky, but they're. I make it geeky. I get in deep.
Yeah. How about you, Chuck Green?
Redwall. Those books were so huge for me.
Yeah.
And they kind of filled the place that comic books would eventually take over. Mm-hmm. But and Animorphs too.
Animorphs. Yeah.
Animorphs and Redwall were pretty king for me.
Mine, the old Zorro TV show.
Yeah, Guy Williams.
Yeah. He used to play it late at night on Disney Channel.
Yes, that's exactly what it was.
That and Star Trek, The Next Generation, and Deep Space Nine. Because I used to watch those on Fox all the time when I was a little kid at night. And there was one more that I was really son of a bitch. What was it?
Well, okay.
I don't know.
Okay, I got one
I
here.
have to think about it.
Favorite superhero spoof? Because there's so many that suck and are cheap, but then there's some really good ones.
So are we talking like satire?
Okay, I'll go with mine, because I can't believe I forgot this during my whole origin story.
Okay.
First chapter book I ever read, and I have every book from the series. I've read it all. Captain Underpants.
Oh, fuck yes.
Captain
Yes.
Underpants.
That was the best.
Well, a lot of it was done like a comic book.
Yeah. And the fliporama pages, and like the kid characters,
Captain
it's a
Underpants.
great
It was
way to
genuinely
encourage kids
funny.
to read.
Like,
Yeah.
on card trips, I would like when I was like 12, 13. Like I would read that because I would just sit in the back of our van because I had the entire back of the van to myself because I was the boy and I would just take it over. But I would just like sit back there and I would just read Captain Underpants, like the third one.
Yeah.
Like I would just read that one over. Oh yeah, again the diabolical plan of Professor Poopy Pants.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Poopy Pants.
That was the best.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure we got Captain Underpants mentioned here.
Alright. Mine would be probably The Tick.
Yeah, Tick's great. Both series
Both
of that
series,
too,
yeah,
like
both
great
of them, yeah.
adaptations. Patrick Warburton, love him.
Yep.
Yeah, I saw the cartoon of that.
It's all on Netflix.
I haven't seen
Hulu.
I haven't seen the live action.
Look it up. It's worth
Batman
it.
Will.
I don't know. Like I can't like. I'm not really sure.
Batman Well, by the way, is mayor in Nolan's universe.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, Batman Well. I thought you were saying Batman Will. And I was
No,
like, what's
Batman Well.
Batman Will.
Yeah. I don't know. Like as far as spoofs go, I don't know because like you guys have covered like some of the better ground.
Yeah.
It's like I'm not gonna say superhero movie.
What about this series that I kind of blanked out, but it has a deserved place in here? Freakazoid.
Yeah,
There you
yeah,
go.
yeah.
Freakazoid.
deserves that.
Freakazoid was good stuff.
Back
So-
when Warner Brothers Animation was doing good
amazing,
things.
yeah. So this can be our transition to Days of Future Past again, but favorite X-Men. Let's end on that for this.
Characters.
Yeah.
Okay.
Havoc.
Yeah.
I love Havoc.
Havoc, Cable.
So which Havoc? What got you into Havoc? Was it Peter David's X Factor? Or?
For me, yeah.
Yeah.
It was Peter David's X Factor, and then once I started reading Cosmic Marvel stuff in the mid 2000s,
And for me, it was the Cosmic Marvel.
Yeah.
It was the Vulcan Saga.
it was the collision of the greater Marvel Cosmic stuff that was happening, like Annihilation and all that stuff. And then the X-Men came and up there during the whole Vulcan shit, and then it all came together in this gloriousness. That
Starjammers.
Havoc's my boy. Also, because I've always found Cyclops to be an annoying bitch.
See, I'll defend Cyclops.
I hated. What's funny is I've only now recently started to like him since he's become like a renegade dude. Like that. Only now have I started to like him. But Havoc, I always thought was the better brother.
Yeah. See, a lot of comic book characters I like are ones I feel bad for. And it's like they get a bad rap. They deserve better. Cyclops is like one of the. It's like Hank Pym and then him.
I love Pym
because it's
Pym,
like
Pym gets a bad rap because that
does.
one time he smacked his wife.
Well, let's not casually discuss that.
It's like it's kind of like empowered by electric eels, you know. It's like you're just kind of glossing over a lot of complications.
There's a lot of there's story there.
Well, yeah. I mean, he was going through a mental breakdown, and it wasn't a recurring theme. It's a weird thing to. I mean, it's something you don't want to talk about casually because it's like, no, I don't want to defend it.
They expanded upon it then in the Ultimate Universe.
That was
They took that too far. That was just Mark Millar
being Mark Miller. Yeah, this is Mark Miller being Mark Miller.
But so you say like defending, like I don't know, like I don't have this as much dislike for Cyclops. I guess I don't understand.
Okay,
it.
so
I just
here's
thought
my
he was a whiny
thing.
bitch.
Okay, so people are always like, Cyclops is boring, or he's, or they hate on him because of like Avengers versus X-Men. But it's like no one's ever like, Cyclops, you've gone through a lot. Like, do you want like, hey, your wife or your fiance just died,
There's no
or your
therapy.
kid got
Taken to the future.
Yeah, or you
other wife turned
survived being merged
psycho.
with Apocalypse, or you're,
Yeah, there's a lot of fuckery in his
there's
life.
so much that's like,
Your
let's
brother
deal with
was
this.
dead. You
You
thought
thought
your
your
whole
other brother
family
was dead. You thought
your family was dead. You didn't know you had a third brother.
The dad
or
that
second
didn't
brother.
get to raise you ended up dying in space, and you never got to say goodbye.
There's so much of that character
That was
that Xavier, like, I blame Xavier for him more so.
Yeah.
But getting back to the actual
Xavier was quit being a white bitch, Cyclops.
Yeah. Well, Xavier instills this damaged 15-year-old with this, view that, no, you have to be in charge of everything. You're responsible for our race. Like, what the fuck, Xavier?
Yeah.
Like, so many moments in X-Men.
He thinks he's doing him a favor, when in reality
When
he's
people
kind of
finally
setting him up for ruin.
When people finally expanded on the fact that Xavier might have not been the best of people.
Yeah.
Like that led to some great comics.
To
To
start this cycle of violence with these damaged kids. Yeah.
And that's
to the
what's
point
kind
where
of
he was on
great.
the outs and wasn't anything to do with the X-Men.
See, and that's what's great about comics in the modern day, anyway, is that they get to unpack the realities of
They get to look at
the more
the irrational,
optimist-
weird stuff,
Yeah.
and then look at it around like, hey, wasn't this weird? Why the fuck did this happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which kind of segueing into Days of Futures Past.
Yeah.
First, my favorite
sorry.
X-Men is also my favorite superhero ever, Beast. I mean, he's the thoughtful,
He's up there for
hairy,
me, too.
funny guy. Like,
always
he's one I've
feel
always
bad for
related
that
to
bastard,
and want to.
too. I always feel terrible for him.
I really
He's
like
had
him
a tough-
Well, he
like,
can be
tough run.
tragic, but he can also be really fun.
Exactly.
Too.
Like I like the X-Men animated series Beast, who's just hopping around on shit, dropping tidbits.
Yeah,
And,
when he's in jail and he's just reading Shakespeare because why the fuck not? And he stays in jail too. It's just like, no, screw you, Magneto. I ain't leaving.
Well, and that's why I'll defend Last Stand, because the Kelsey Grammer
Exactly,
got
exactly.
it right.
That's why I've always said, I've repeated this story a million times. When I was a little kid, I watched Fox all the time. So Fox Kids in the morning, X-Men animated series, and all those shows. And Beast was one of my favorites on there. And then at night when I'd go to bed, I'd watch Fox 2. And at that point, it was Seinfeld, Frasier, and some Star Trek series, whether it was Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, whatever. So in watching all that, I was just like, man, if they ever put Beast in a live-action movie, it'd be awesome if Kelsey Grammer played it. Sure enough, it happened, and I was the most excited motherfucker ever.
Thank God you didn't say, Jason Alexander. That'd be a great piece.
Was that a possibility?
No, he just mentioned
Michael
Seinfeld.
Richards.
So Days of Future Past.
Yes, Days of Future Past.
I read it.
Which I will say, I hadn't read the actual story until recently.
And it's really
But
short
what
too.
surprised
Like, it was
the
only
shit
like
out of
2
me
issues.
was 2
right?
issues.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, wait, why is it always packaged as a graphic novel? They throw other shit in there. That's why.
Yeah.
But it's only 2 issues on. They also expanded upon it a little bit, I think, for the graphic novel, if I read correctly in the thing I was reading about.
Oh yeah,
But
Because that was Claremont, right?
yeah, Claremont and Byrne,
Yeah, that was the beginning.
and that was really where
Claremont's in Days of Future
Is he?
Past.
Where is he?
What's his cameo?
He's in one of the. It's one of the like conference scenes.
Okay.
Him and
was Stan in there? I didn't see
Stan's
Stan.
not.
Yeah.
It was
He
Claremont.
was too busy doing the Spider-Man one.
Yeah, Claremont and
Byrne said no, he wouldn't be in it.
yeah, but they didn't ask him.
No.
It was Claremont and
He's a dick.
who else is big X-Men guy?
Morris,
Not
or
Straczynski.
Whedon? No.
Those guys wouldn't.
Yeah.
They're not old enough to be
Yeah.
cameo people yet.
Yeah.
But it was Len Wein.
Oh yeah, nice.
Len Wein and
Good.
Claremont were both
Yeah.
in the scene together.
That's cool.
Claremont was like, "That's the first time I've had to shave in a long time."
Yeah.
Because he had to be appropriate.
Claremont's the man.
Because in X3, Claremont was in there.
Yeah, he was a water hose guy.
Yeah, exactly. Because he's got to be doddering old man for that one.
Claremont's my boy.
Yeah, no, he defined that.
Yeah,
he saved that.
He
franchise.
also led into the most like convoluted of X-Men universes ever, though, in the 90s. If you in going back and reading 90s X-Men, whatever, like, you'd go from one issue of the series to the next, and all of a sudden you felt like you missed an entire storyline because there's a bunch of shit playing out in all the different series.
Yeah,
So it was just like,
so
it was just like you go from one issue. It was Cable I was reading, but from one issue Cable to the next, and it was like it went from them being the outlaw team, whatever, and the next one they're living in the mansion, and Cable's got like some authority, and I'm like, what is happening? But yeah, that's why it's always really hard, especially in the 90s, to get into X-Men because it's so.
So And also, what was going on in the 90s was the Age of Apocalypse.
Yep.
So it's
Yeah,
like,
which
what are your hopes
Our
for X-Men Apocalypse?
I was never a big Apocalypse guy until I read Uncanny X-Force, Rick Remender's run, and that made me be like, oh wow, this is actually interesting.
Yeah. I've liked Apocalypse because he's always been a cool bad guy in the cartoons, and with Apocalypse, there's always the chance of my boy Cable being up.
See,
in
and
it.
that's what I'm excited for.
I want Stallone to play Cable.
Oh my god!
Okay, the half of his face with paralysis, that has a technovirus. You know, I mean, he's the right age, he's the right build.
I love that.
Let's give that man some gray hair.
Yeah.
Hey, they're working on X-Force too.
Oh god, no! Like, because that's one thing that I like. You know, I love Cable. You're talking, but like this is the idea of the Cable is this time hopper trying to just do everything he can to stop
I think that'd
apocalypse
make a
from
great
happening.
movie.
But it's like throughout history, but then always facing the reality that eventually he is going to have to appear. And
That's
they're
what
just going to have to
McKay's
fight
really
him.
tapped into with Cable and Deadpool, making him an interesting guy.
Exactly.
You know, he's
And
not.
I mean, they talked to, I don't know if it was Donner or somebody else, but she was saying now that Deadpool's back on active development again at Fox.
Reynolds needs it.
X-Force,
Like this is okay.
X-Force is back
moving
on
from
active
X-Men
again.
to DC never works.
No.
It never works. Halle Berry, Ryan Reynolds, Ryan Singer. No.
Oh god, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You either start there or you don't do anything else.
Yeah.
You can go from Marvel to Marvel.
Yeah. Chris
But,
Evans. But
yeah, have you read the Deadpool script that they wrote? I don't, if
No,
they're,
I didn't
like
find
when
it.
Rodriguez was going to be the guy doing
it
it.
ends with him punching Amy Winehouse, right? Or,
I don't know
that's
about
what
that.
I read a rumor about.
I don't remember that. No,
Okay.
but like it was really hard R.
Yeah.
The only X-Men character to appear is Colossus, because Colossus is sent in to like stop because like it's a really like kind of convoluted.
Yeah.
You know, like there's a framing device around it. Like, not to go into too much detail, but essentially Colossus is sent in to stop Deadpool from doing something.
Yeah.
And then by the end of it, Colossus is like, "Oh fuck it, they'll help you," and then they go and fight all the bad guys. But like that's the way that was written, you know, because it was written by the guys who did Zombieland.
Yeah.
So there's lots of intentional like slowing everything down,
Yeah.
you know, and having text appear within it. You
Well,
know,
Rodriguez
stuff
is
like
a
that.
good fit
He's
for
not.
Deadpool.
Is he still on board
No,
for that?
of
I don't
course
think
not.
he is. But it would have been hard R. There's lots of sex in it.
Yeah.
Lots of violence. Lots of swearing.
All the good things that come with Deadpool.
Yeah.
That is sanitized in the comics, which
Yeah.
is funny.
Deadpool's my boy too.
But like,
That's
if
my
they
boy.
had made it like that, and then that's because was it Blur Studio that was behind that also, or what were they doing?
I'm
I
not
can't
sure.
remember.
I don't know.
No, they were doing the Goon.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Blur was doing good.
They were doing Goon because like at Comic-Con, like that when we went,
Yep.
I was that one. I forget the name of the artist, but he used to do a lot of DC shit.
Yep.
And now he works for Blur Studio as one of their concept artists, and
Yep.
he did the concept art for the what do you call that? The MMO they made.
Oh yeah.
He did all the concept art for that, for the trailer that they made for that.
Yep.
And he was talking about things that they were working on because I think Blur
Oh,
Studios,
the DCUO.
yeah,
That one. Which is one of the best fucking
Yeah.
video game trailers ever.
But like they were also working. In addition to the Goon, they were also involved in Deadpool. I think they were going to be the special effects house for the Deadpool movie when it was going to be small, stripped down, and done by Troublemaker Studios. In addition,
How do you feel about Gambit with Channing Tatum?
it's so
Like,
stupid. It's unnecessary.
I like Channing Tatum. Well, I think a solo Gambit would work well. That Thieves Guild stuff, that would make a fun
Maybe.
movie. But like, I think he's just the wrong physique. He's
Also,
just
yeah,
bulky.
yeah.
I hate the genesis of the project.
he needs
too.
to be life. You know, he
How-
needs
Yeah,
How
he's
it got-
agile. He's,
How it got brought about, just Linda Schuler Downer fucking creaming her pants, thinking about Channing Tatum as Gambit.
It's the Channing Tatum.
Channing
line,
Tatum
you know?
being like, "Yeah, he's a down south guy. I like that. I'm from down south."
But
And the
like
movie
you look at
happened.
him in the trailer for like any action movie he's done, like
Jupiter Ascending. Or,
yeah, that it's like I don't look at that and I don't see Gambit.
no.
Like even in X-Men Origins, I thought that dude was
Taylor Kitsch.
Yeah, Kitsch was a better fit. For
Yeah,
that.
I didn't mind Kitsch.
That's the
Right.
script.
That's
was
one of
the
the few
script was the
things in
problem.
Wolverine Origins. that
I don't know.
enjoyed.
He's let me down other blockbusters that were
yeah.
also terrible. But
Well, was he bad in John Carter?
Yeah.
Like, what was wrong with John Carter?
Yeah, a lot of people have
it's
been saying
boring.
like a lot
It's
of people have
good.
been saying like
because I haven't seen
10
it.
years down the line when people love John Carter.
No.
Because a lot of people have been saying like that's going to be
Just because you love the books doesn't mean it's
Well, no, it's a lot of movie people were just like, this is going to be a cult classic in 10 years.
Okay, my brother Taylor Kitsch, because I've seen him in Wolverine and Battleship and John Carter and Savages, is that like they're all terrible movies, terribly written. Like he doesn't have anything to play with, but he doesn't bring much either.
Okay, that's
like
a good point.
That's the role of the action star, to be likable, to keep you
to elevate everything.
Friday Night Lights, wasn't he?
Yeah,
and I hear people swear by
Lights.
that performance. I hear he's good in Lone Survivor.
I think a lot of it has to do with the writing he's given.
Yeah. And I mean, no good direction in those movies either. So I mean,
like
I'm not blaming him.
It's kind of a problem with like Amazing Spider-Man 2. A lot of those actors were given garbage, even though they're like grade A actors.
But like Scott said, he needs to be bringing more to the table.
Yeah.
I mean, if he's only motivated to do that with good material and good direction, then he's kind of a lazy actor. I guess. Not to make too many assumptions about that.
Look at him compared to us. He's lazy. This guy's lazy.
As far as his job, which is acting. It's like because there are actors who can elevate work.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm stumped for examples at the moment. But definitely out there. Well, Days of Future Past to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. For First Class, definitely.
Yeah, First Class, Fassbender and McAvoy made the movie.
I think now too, with the response that Days of Future Past is getting, it has opened that X-Men world back up again. Where
I actually want to see that.
These past few years, it's been very selective what movies they put out for it, and what they use. But now that the door's been blown open by Days of Future Past, and people are back on it, feeling like they did back 10 years ago, and there's love there, and people are excited for more. That gives them the chance now to pop the Deadpools, the X-Forces,
and this is something you consider.
Psylocke, Angel done well. So many.
And it's like we kind of touched on this in the preamble a little bit. Just the fact that it's almost better for the X-Men to be completely separate.
Yeah.
Because they have so much to play with. They might as well be their own.
And at this point, it makes no sense to combine the worlds because then it'll be like, well, where were they when this happened? Or where were they when this happened? Or why don't they
move the story forward?
That's why Marvel is making the push now in their comics to kind of create a mutant-like society for the Inhumans, so then they can use that in their movies.
Yeah. As the explanation,
which annoys the shit out of me.
Well, that's what they're forced into doing, and eventually down the road,
I hate their
like when we're like 40, they'll be able to actually have it all together. Yeah. Who knows? But
I
hope that Warpath is back. Yeah. It's like in Brubaker's run.
Dude, X-Force, get him back in X-Force.
Well, but even Brubaker's run, where he was awesome. He was a Wolverine of that team, but fresher than Wolverine had been in a long time, and like Boo Boo Stewart in the role.
I liked it.
Yeah.
You know, I had no. I thought I made fun of him because of his name.
The well, in the character too, if you read the Yost and X-Force,
Kyle.
Craig Kyle and Yost, their X-Force run with him did a lot of good development for him too. And it was just, I really think, I mean, there's certain players you can't avoid for X-Force at this point. Especially for name recognition, and also so people who are synonymous with the team.
But it's gone through so many iterations.
It is, but there's characters that I'm sure they're going to want to include in it with big names like. I don't think they would, but like Wolverine.
Yeah, because
he led the team for a while. Cable.
Yeah.
Deadpool.
Psylocke seems to be
Domino.
Stable. Yeah.
We could assume Phantom X won't be involved.
No.
Because that opens up the Morrison can of worms.
Great film. Yeah. Well, Domino. Yeah, photographed great.
And but then from there, then you go who from the rest of X-Force would you put in there? And there's people who stick out like Cannonball.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And Warpath.
Shatterstar might be cool on film.
Because that's the thing on film. It's like there are so
well,
many.
Like Blink on
that's
film
what I
compared to
mean.
Blink in the comics. Like,
Oh
wow,
my God.
I was like, this is amazing.
I'm one of those people that I know Blink's got a fan base, but I didn't give a shit about Blink.
No.
And then they put her in this movie, and I saw that sequence. They released that sequence ahead of the movie.
Yeah.
Like that was so.
And I watched that, and I was just like, that's
it's like I was just like, this is thinking how you're thinking with portals.
Yeah, well, yeah. When she threw the multiple portals and threw the one just as the Sentinel was stabbing, and it went through and stabbed another Sentinel, and it was like, I'm like, that's
so many moments like that.
And that was awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, we need more of that. It's like that's why they just need to embrace these more obscure mutants and just get them into these movies.
Yeah.
Just because it's boring just seeing a dude. Not that it's boring, but it's like we have seen it enough.
Yeah.
We don't like. We've seen Magneto lift metal shit. We've seen him control guns. We've seen.
It's become
a Xavier think.
Yeah, we've seen Xavier think. We've seen Wolverine do what Wolverine does best.
Yeah.
You know, it's time for us to.
X-23.
By the way, they throw that line really sloppily into Wolverine Origins. I just noticed the other day.
They throw that whole script sloppily in Origins.
I mean, I'm the best at what I do, and what I do isn't very nice or whatever.
Yeah.
They pigeonhole that.
Did you hear the story about how we saw that movie?
Oh no, that's a good one.
Okay, there's this dude who lived on our floor freshman year whose dad runs a convenience store in the ghetto in Minneapolis.
Okay.
And he buys, rip-off movies. So it's like when that was leaked, when like the work print of that was leaked, he got a copy of it. And he knew we liked comics. So he was like, here, you should watch this. So we were like, fuck yeah, we can see this movie early. And we watched it, and we were like, well, this is the work print. Not everything's finished. So
there was no special effects or anything. Okay. And there was a couple parts where it was just like,
it was just previs,
it was like, I was like, oh, it wasn't terrible. We'll see if it gets better with special effects. No.
I was holding out hope that there was like scenes that were added or removed. No, it was exactly.
And the effects just made it worse because the effects were terrible.
Yeah.
That scene when Wolverine
gets thrown into the logs, because that was hilarious.
When he's in, it's more so than that. It's the scene where he's in the barn after he escapes, and his claws pop out,
so bad,
and he is looking at him and stuff. The CG of those claws was terrible.
They were so cheap. Like,
and also
the claws in the first X-Men movie
look better.
Yeah.
And then also the very end of the movie where the shot goes down and up on 3 Mile Island. You see it literally looks like Wolverine turns from a person into a little like video game character, like running. Like it looked terrible.
Well, okay, yeah, I love the adamantium bullet thing they set up. Like, this can kill him. And the only thing that can kill him. And then it's like they get to the final scene. Finally, they're showing like, wait, he's not dead in the other movies. And we haven't figured out how he loses his memories yet. So it's like, that won't kill him. No, but it'll make him look,
So here's my
forget
question. Did they show the bullet coming out of his head?
I don't remember.
I doubt
Or they just show it healing. So he has an adamantium bullet in his brain. Yeah. And his brain is just compensating for it.
What I liked about Days of Future Past that I pointed out to Chuck too when we were in there, the part where they're in the past and they're going to that press conference thing with Nixon.
Yeah.
And they do a callback to the metal detector scene.
Yeah, that was
X-Men.
funny. That was great.
That made me laugh.
And it didn't occur to me right away. But like when we first go back to the past and Wolverine pops his claws into the bones, I was just like, oh yes, we get Bone Claw Wolverine back. It was like it was a nice little novelty.
Yeah. It's good to change it up.
Yeah. You get and then they managed to give you the classic Magneto showing Wolverine what's up after he threw all those.
That was brutal.
Those things into him. Yeah.
That was nice. I liked
it. It was kind of almost reminiscent of
the first
not in the what was going on, but just how it looked.
Yeah.
It looked a lot like kind of in the comics when Magneto stripped Wolverine of his
head. Oh yeah, that's true. Like when it was actually
the pain and the holding him up.
It reminded me of that too.
Yeah, was it the first movie when he's doing that to him and he's like his claws stretch
bend,
out.
yeah.
Yet again, it's like it's calling back to
and also
things we've already seen.
The one way you can kill Wolverine,
Drown him.
just drown him. Yeah, just about did it. That's why I was just like, oh shit. I was like, how is he going to get out of that? Because he had no hope of getting out of it. But eventually, I guess he was able to heal back to life somehow.
That's something like I brought it up before, but like when Magneto just tossed him into the Potomac or whatever that body of water is, I was just like, holy shit! It's like Wolverine's is a non-factor now.
Yeah.
How the heck is like
exactly?
This just gonna end?
Like you said, like most X-Men movies, Wolverine is like the deciding factor.
Yeah,
and they took him out.
To their credit, they were like, you know what? We've seen this already.
No, if you're gonna be out of commission.
We're
gonna let our villain be the hero. We're gonna let the villain.
I really liked how they made Wolverine a supporting character. Yeah, like I mean, they used him well, but he wasn't.
He was like, and it wasn't a supporting character in that everything was left to the main people, and he was just there. He was a supporting character, and he actually provided guidance. Yeah. And he actually supported the character.
The point was that the characters in the past were the ones who needed to do the shit.
Yeah.
And he was just there as a motivator.
He was to Xavier what Xavier was to him.
Yeah, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
I read online someone called this the best Terminator movie since '91. I really have to agree with that. It's time travel and robots
but it's a weird twist on the Terminator plot.
You even got the giant ships flying through there.
It's not someone coming from the past to. They're coming from the future to kill someone in the past. No. It's people from the future going to stop something, save someone in the past. Yeah. It's a reverse on it. But yeah, talking about that battle in the fortress that they're in, like when you see all of those carriers coming in, that was the most dread-filled moment I felt in a movie in a long time.
Oh my god,
they are fucked. There's no coming back.
How about what I found cool, even though he wasn't used a lot, but when he was, it was done as it probably should have been. Was Bishop?
Yeah.
He's just like. He just looks. He's like Sunspot, and Sunspot just
Or when Blink throws up the portal and he's shooting like he's like he's in a ship, you know, with them, and he's shooting them from a distance. That was neat.
Storm power went up. That was cool. This Sunspot's another person you could throw in X-Force.
Yeah, absolutely.
X-Force guy.
Have we finally seen the end of Storm Halle Berry?
I fucking hope so.
Who could we cast to replace her?
Well, originally it was supposed to be Angela Bassett, and then Jada Pinkett Smith, or Pinkett at the time.
No, for this movie?
No, for X-Men, and they turned it down.
Okay.
Yeah. But because in the X-Men movie universe, wasn't Storm one of his earlier students?
Yeah.
So,
because he says, Jean, Storm, and Scott were my first students.
They were the first class.
Yeah, one of the big first class continuity issues.
Until they weren't the first class.
So if we're going 80s in this one, it would bring about the casting of a younger person as Storm. Yeah. So if you had to cast a young Storm, who would you think?
Let's see.
Not Willow Smith.
No. Well, no, not that young.
Because we can't do Zoe Saldana because she's already busy.
Yeah, she's older now.
What about the girl from 12 Years a Slave?
Pignano, she's rumored,
That'd be pretty inspired.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and then she has the emotional resonance too, and she,
and she's also kind of more ethnically appropriate.
Yeah.
Africa,
Actual.
Yeah.
Not to sound, that sounds kind of...
No.
Bad,
but no, she'd have the kind of the grace, definitely.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And she'd have the affectation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The power.
Because Kerry Washington's too old, and
unfortunately,
as appealing as Halle Berry is to look at, she wasn't the most powerful.
Honestly, the best,
most independent. Like Storm, you see in the comics, she's just this larger than life.
She's a force of nature.
Yeah.
Well, also, if we do Storm's origins, Storm in the comics has a fascinating character arc where, she's, worshipped as this goddess, but then she's kind of the outsider who doesn't like all this violence, but then she becomes a reluctant leader, and then the badass 80s, Mohawk, and then she becomes the regal leader that she got stuck with for way too long.
Yeah.
She stopped developing in the 90s.
Divorced that bastard.
Black Panther. That
Well,
was
they got
terrible.
divorced?
Oh, hell yeah.
He divorced her, yeah.
Why?
In the middle of when they were fighting in Avengers vs. X-Men, yeah.
Oh,
Because
see, I
Namor
missed that
attacked
event.
Wakanda, yeah.
Well, that's too bad. Because
It's too bad.
And now Namor and Panther are working together.
Yeah, to save the universe, yeah.
Of course.
Or their own world.
course.
There's some intense, convoluted Hickman shit that's happening.
Good, because I love convoluted Hickman
It's
shit.
the best.
He's good, yeah. New Avengers.
Avengers and New Avengers
Yeah.
have had new life breathed into them.
Well, I think we might need to
Wrap
wrap
it
this
up.
up.
Yeah.
Let's do it. So,
Let's do it.
yeah, final thoughts.
Final thoughts.
That's our origins, and we took a lot of diversions in this
we
one.
did, but and appropriately, Days of Future Past tied in nicely with that because we were talking about how that brought
You
back
gotta
feelings
see it. You
of
gotta-
our origins.
Because there's this guy at work in the break room who was saying that he had absolutely no interest in seeing this.
Yeah.
And I was just like, son, you just got
Son.
Yeah.
But he was like, but Lucy looks like a good movie, and I was just like,
No.
you're hopeless. You're hopeless.
Yeah.
No, just
Go
All right.
see X.
So,
Go
son,
see
go
X-Men.
see Days of Future
Go
Past.
see Days.
Talk
of
to you
Future
next
Past.
week.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, guys.